Ryan McMichael, what a treat to have you. Fortune 500 sales leader who has over 20 years of tech sales experience. I can't wait to learn from you in terms of how you do your career all over again. Because you rised up the ranks with a great, trajectory. You're at a great company, making a huge impact. You've been very successful. Yet we were talking offline, and you said you had ideas of how you might do things differently. So, one, thank you for being here, and two, let's just get into it and tell us that different path you might take if you could talk to your younger self, just getting into tech sales.
Sure. Well, Chris, first and foremost, thanks for having me. And two, I think if I don't say this now, I might forget to say it later. But I think really highly of you, and I think what you're doing is fantastic as far as giving back. And it's really obvious how much passion you have around these topics and helping others. So, thank you. And I'll tell you what. By the way, not that I'm in any way, shape, or form unhappy where I'm at, and I believe that you're right where you're supposed to be in life. But if I had to do over again, or if I was speaking to my younger self, I think first and foremost, just going back to even college, today they have programs where you can study sales in college, which is amazing. You could get a degree in professional selling if you wanted to. So first and foremost, I might look at actually getting a degree in sales. Very few people choose sales as a profession. And when you can go back and actually get a degree in sales, it helps legitimize that process. So that's one. Two, I would absolutely go to work as a BDR or an SDR in tech sales, and I would go work for a company that has a selling culture and has a mature entry level or BDR, SDR program. So go find a place where they have great leadership, they invest in training, and you can really take advantage of that. Two, show progression. So from that SDR or BDR role, if you can demonstrate progression and you can show that you got promoted from that SDR, BDR role within your same organization, that's going to go a long way as far as your track record and being able to sell yourself. I think where maybe I would share advice or guidance that sounds a little different than most is I don't necessarily believe that your first AE job, as you go from SDR, from BDR to an AE, it doesn't have to be with a big name. It doesn't have to be with a Pure Storage. It doesn't have to be at some Google, Microsoft, any of these really sexy household names that you hear. It could be an organization you've never heard before. So someone you've had on the program and someone who I think highly of is Brandon Fluharty. He actually recently posted, I believe it was something like top 5 AE tech sales jobs, high earning tech sales jobs with companies you've never heard before. And it was from RepView. And these were very solid organizations where you could make $1 million or more as an individual contributor. And these were companies that probably weren't on anyone's radar.
That's powerful. And I know Brandon, he had that 7-figure year. And I forget if he had multiple. He was at LivePerson, a conversational AI platform, and he sold to the airlines, and he was doing these large transformational deals at this late stage startup with some degree of maturity, but not a company that most would think of, like the big Oracles and the Dells and the Pure Storage. So thanks for getting us thinking about finding that company that is at the right stage of maturity that people might not know about, where you can really make it rain. Because a lot of people do have the idea that I need to go for the big companies. And I'm curious, like, do you have any guidance on how to find those right opportunities to bet your career on? You did mention one resource, RepView, that is a great resource, but I didn't expect to ask you about this, but any other tactical pieces of advice on how to find those diamond in the rough companies?
I would say maybe look for one. I'm always a big fan of finding organizations that have CEOs or top leadership that came from sales.
Mm,
Typically, when you can find that, it tells you that it's going to be a sales driven culture. They're going to want to pay their people and they're going to side with the sales team. In most cases, decisions will be made that will benefit salespeople. So I love finding CEOs that came from sales. That's always a great sign. Two, I would look for leadership that maybe came from larger organizations and they chose to take that experience and leverage that at a smaller company. And I would look for compensation plans that perhaps are tied to profitability of the company and give you a little bit more of an entrepreneurial opportunity, somewhere where you might be able to build out a territory on your own. Bigger risk, bigger reward.
Is there anything else you want to add around strategic moves in your career? Because you already gave us so much to work with and a cool trajectory to consider, and even a different approach to not getting so caught up on big companies, right? So I just want to ask you if there's anything else you'd add, because otherwise I want to talk about how to make yourself into a seller, like a sales ninja for hire, developing portable skills. And I thought we had talked one off, you had a great perspective on that. So I'd like to go there. I just want to check, is there anything else you want to add in terms of strategically navigating your career?
Yeah, sure. So what I would tell you is some of these larger organizations, they're fantastic. They have great resources, excellent leadership. You're going to find some really good training. However, the compensation plans themselves could be a little cookie cutter. You
Yep.
might find that the compensation plan at some of these Fortune 500 companies to look fairly similar. They have an OTE that could have limited upside. And I believe that you might want to seek out places where, instead of renting a territory, because I think for a lot of these larger organizations, you're renting a territory for a period of time. You're basically signing an agreement. Hey, for the next 12 months, I'm renting this territory and I'm going to bring in as much as I possibly can. After that, I could be subject to having to give up these accounts. My entire territory could change. You
Yep.
could start to, things could be resegmented. You don't really have a lot of say in that matter. In a smaller organization or an organization that's still building out, you might have more of an opportunity to build out your own book of business, your own territory. Think of it for a minute as if you were an insurance salesperson. Typically, I'm just going to use like State Farm as an example. At the end of your career or at the end of your stretch of time, you actually have a chance to sell your book of business based on how you've built it up. And I don't know anyone else that can do that at a Google or a Microsoft or an Amazon. You basically just move on from your patch. You don't have an opportunity to sell your territory based on how you've built it from zero to $10 million annually producing territory. So I think there's a lot of value in taking ownership of a territory and having some leverage within an organization to say, I've built it from this to this,
Mm.
and I have these accounts that buy because of me.
When I was at Google, that was a challenge with Google Cloud. Even customers did complain. And overall, great experience, great, amazing company. But they complained that reps were changing all the time. So you put in so much work to build up a customer, get them to spend their first dollars on the Google Cloud, and they were ingrained with a bigger incumbent, AWS or Azure, and then they're about to boom and the next rep takes over. And that kind of sucks that you put in the effort and then might lose on the big upside from a sales perspective. But it also sucks for the customer when there's like changes going on and there's not that same continuity. Now, when I went to a Series D startup and I was the second founding US seller in my last role over the last 4 years before I went all in on this podcast. And thank you, by the way, for the kind words in the beginning. Like that made my day. And I'm going to rewatch that. And thank you. I went all in, baby. But bringing it back, the last role, I was able to, I brought on a customer in year one. I supported him for 4 years. Imagine you can really build a relationship. You can really grow the account. And so what you're saying is that that's a great insight you offered about in a lot of companies, you're renting a territory versus there's some opportunities where you can really build your territory and build relationships. And also when I was able to work with a customer for 4 years or an executive, that tended to bloom into a lifelong relationship and even a personal relationship, because those things take time. So great insights. And I want to talk about becoming a sales ninja for hire. You just had an interesting perspective, something I hadn't thought about, and like developing portable skills. So I just would like to give you the floor to openly talk about this concept and we can kind of dig into it.
Sure. So yeah, I believe that instead of building a resume, you want to focus on building a portfolio of skills. And I think a great way to frame that up, or a great way to think about it, is if you could never return to the W-2 corporate world of tech sales, and you were just or I shouldn't say just, but if you were a sales ninja for hire and you were going to be a contracted salesperson and you were going to get paid for your performance only, what 5 skills would you go all in on and really master so that you were recession proof and organizations wanted to hire you, customers wanted to buy from you, and you really became irreplaceable or indispensable?
Yes.
And I named a few. We can talk about a few of those. I think one is public speaking. You've talked about that. I know you've invested in Toastmasters. I know that you're part of, I think, the National Speaking Association.
Yes.
Being able to effectively convey your ideas and get other people excited about what you're doing, that is a learned skill. And the more you practice it, the better you'll get at it, and the more you'll be able to impact others. So whether it's in sales or whether it's in your personal life, extremely valuable skill.
What other skills, if you had to pick a couple, beyond being able to speak effectively, would you focus on just mastering?
Another is writing, for sure. Becoming a compelling writer, being able to get your point across and translate energy in your writing. I know with AI, maybe some people feel like they don't necessarily need to write on their own and they can just use ChatGPT for that. But I think it is still extremely valuable it's one of the reasons I write on LinkedIn, is because I want, if I can write an effective hook, if I can get people to read my writing on LinkedIn, then I know I still have the ability to write an effective email to a customer. And I can, think of it this way. When you are scrolling LinkedIn, you have to be able to get someone's attention in a really short period of time, and you are competing against all the other people that are on LinkedIn. It's no different than if you're in tech sales and the end user or the key decision maker is getting hundreds of emails from different people and they choose to stop on your email. It's the same skill set. So if you can figure out how to write and be compelling and get someone's attention and keep it to the point, you'll be a very effective seller.
If you're a new account executive or you just got promoted and you're looking for coaching to help upskill, hit your targets, make more commission, then consider booking time with me at my Calendly link linked in the description of this video, because Tech Sales Accelerator has been helping reps like Nick at Splunk become #1 in his organization and rise up to the next level. All right, let's get back to the episode.
I'm still working on that, to be able to capture people's attention when it comes to stopping the scroll on LinkedIn. And so I just think it is developing writing skills is so important in not just in sales, but in life. So between speaking and writing, I think that brings a whole different level of meaning to this career path, that we can use it as a vehicle to develop these life-changing skills that don't just impact us professionally, but I believe personally. And one thing we talked about is using tech sales as a vehicle to getting to where you want to go in life and aligning it to our personal vision. And I just want to get your thoughts on that concept of how have you used tech sales as a vehicle to getting to where you want to go, and how would you encourage others to think about using tech sales as a vehicle to empower their personal vision?
Sure. So you've had some people on this podcast that I look up to, that I think highly of. Ian Koniak is an example. Brandon Fluharty, who we already talked about. Marcus Chan.
Yes.
These are all individuals that were extremely successful as individual contributors, as managers within tech sales. And they have all taken that experience and that success to now help thousands and thousands of other people. And so I think that, it's noble, and it is really admirable to learn for a period of time, earn, be successful, help develop leaders, and then ultimately give back. And so I think that tech sales specifically can allow you to do that. You can, if you're really wise with the money that you earn, ultimately you can save that, you can have it work for you, and you don't necessarily have to work. You can choose to work because it's something that you want to do and something that you're passionate about. And it gives you the time to be able to go back and give to others. And so I'm just, I find all of those individuals to be very inspiring. And although I'm not necessarily a coach, and I don't have a book or some of the things that maybe those individuals have to promote, I'm still very passionate about helping people who are early in career.
I'd say not yet, because that's a path totally available to you. You have so much insight to offer, and it's fun to be able to extract that insight and inspiration in this conversation and share it with people. So something you inspired me on too was when we were talking one off, you said, just adopt a mentality, like make it your identity to be a hard worker, not just professionally, but with your family. People are counting on you to be that best version of yourself. And I just want you to riff now on this, of that, the concept of what that means to you to create an identity of being a hard worker.
Yeah, sure. So, I wish I had all these were original thoughts of my own, but a lot of these things I learned from someone like a James Clear in Atomic Habits, or again, I will go back to someone like an Ian Koniak. Adopting an identity of, for instance, I have tried to identify or create an identity around being a business athlete. And so when I think about that, what does a business athlete mean? It means someone who takes their craft seriously. If you think of a professional athlete, they prepare. They don't just show up to a game and they haven't been practicing, right? I'm here in Philadelphia. The Eagles don't just show up on Sunday having not practiced these things multiple times. They are a trained professional. And I think that in order to be successful in life, you want to train at what you do. You want to take your craft seriously. And so when you think of an identity around a business athlete or a hard worker, you work hard in your job. You work really, really hard from whatever that is, 8 a.m. till 5 o'clock at night. And then from 5 until, bedtime, you're working hard as a father and as a husband or as a son or a brother or whatever roles you play. And so it really never stops. You're working hard as a leader or as an individual contributor, and then you're working the same with the same level of intensity at home, but in a different role. And so when you act that way, it's almost like you are always on some sort of timer or moving with purpose and energy because you have a mission around what
Mhm.
you're doing. And it also gives you a really powerful filter to look at your life, meaning when you make decisions every day, you can say, well, is this something that a business athlete would do? Like, no, I don't think it is. So it allows you to make your decisions through a different lens or a different filter. I don't think this gets me closer to becoming a business athlete. This actually detracts from me being a business athlete. So I'm going to choose not to do this. So I have found that type of identity work to be really, really powerful.
And that's something we're probably going to dig into as we round out the conversation, is beliefs and identity and habits that are really the foundation of our success. And when we don't have that in place, things crumble. But I'm going to save that for a little later because I still have some more questions I wanted to ask you. And you had mentioned something about having seasons of grind and then times of, I don't know if you called it rest or seasons that maybe are less intensive. Because when we can agree to adopt a operating system mindset of being a hard worker, it's inherently good. It produces good fruits for ourselves as a business athlete and for our family. But in our one-off conversation, you mentioned there's seasons maybe where you don't grind as much. Can you just walk through that balance and the seasonality of grind versus maybe less grind? I'd love your thoughts.
Yeah, sure. So work-life balance is a really popular topic. We hear it all the time. And I think most recently you hear more and more people talk about work-life integration. By the way, that's the beautiful part around sales is you are paid for your performance. You are paid for results. And so ultimately, if you become really good at what you do, you don't necessarily have to work from 8 to 5 every single day. You have the freedom and the ability to go pick up your daughter from the bus stop like I just did.
Yeah.
Or maybe you coach a youth sports team, or maybe you take your significant other, your spouse, out to lunch during the day, because you might choose to work until 7 o'clock one night, or the next night you're out with a client. And so at the end of the day, what's really cool in this profession is you're paid for results. You typically should be able to own your time. And if you need to weave your personal life into a working day, typically that is available to you or should be available to you. So that's just one thing to think about. I think it's a great way to live.
Yeah, I remember Max, that was a top performer at Google Cloud. He was #1 in our corporate segment, which had some good late stage SaaS companies and maybe the types where you could earn 7 figures like we were talking about. He, in that segment, he was #1, and everyone knew he was working 20 hours a week. And he even told me, it's like, yeah, if I have a rough day, I might just take the afternoon off. Something goes wrong. But the guy was, he was #1 and he made like deep 6 figures, probably and so it's interesting what he did is he learned how to work really smart. He was very effective. And it's cool on this path, you can get to that point, as
Yeah.
an individual contributor, I imagine as a leader too, and you can find that balance. And what a unique opportunity in tech sales. Like, you can create true freedom and flexibility, but the price we pay is that we are living in risk. There's a chance we can get canned, if we're not delivering, and there's layoffs can happen and companies can pivot their go-to-market direction. But gosh, I think it's a great path, and it's so cool that you've been down it with just great companies for 20 years, and you're at a point where you're able to be there for your daughters and for your family, deliver great results for your team, and also hop on a podcast like this to share with others and lift them up.
For sure. And let me, if you don't mind, I'd love to add to this thought process.
Awesome.
So another person who I study or read up on quite a bit is Rory Vaden. We spoke about him when you and I chatted last time. And so he has a phrase or a quote that I love, and it's working double time, part-time for full-time free time. And what he means by that is there will be times in your life where, let's just say, for instance, I just moved from SDR to AE, and I am building out a brand new territory. In that instance, that might be a season of your life. There might be an 18-month period where you put in extra hours and you are really burning the midnight oil, and you are putting extra work into building out this territory. And you might be thinking to yourself, wow, this is like the hustle culture, the grind culture, the things that maybe I didn't necessarily want. But the thing is, if you're willing to do that work and you're willing to put your head down for a season of your life, and by the way, it could be shorter, it could be longer. You might even do a season of your life for 3 to 5 years, but ultimately, hard now, easy later. You are setting yourself up for future success. You are helping future Chris Bussing. So all the work, all the things that you're doing now is just putting yourself in a really, really great position down the road. And so that's what I'm thinking about when I said seasons of life. Is there might be times where you work really, really hard, and there might be times where you're spending more time with your family, or you're spending more time on personal development. It's not always going to be an even keel line. In fact, I'd say it's more often a little bit of an up and down. There's times where you're extremely busy, and there's times where you might be focusing on rest, recovery, and replenishment.
You got me fired up, man.
Let's go.
6 months ago, I left corporate to build this and Tech Sales Accelerator, my career coaching business. And it's like I am in that season of grind, and you're just giving me permission to embrace that this is the time to do it. And there's going to be other times where it's more chill, and I've had those seasons too. And so wherever you are and if you're someone in the audience right now watching this, you can understand that there are different seasons, and really lean into the season you're in. But as you mentioned, Ryan, when you're transitioning into a new territory as an AE, that's a great time to lean in, because it's going to pay dividends in the future. It's going to buy you more freedom in the future. You're benefiting your future self. You just launched, went all in on a business like I did. Lean in. You just got into tech sales for the first time as an SDR. You broke in. Congratulations. Let's lean in. And so I do think it seems, based on what you're saying too, there are times of transition when you step into new opportunities where you really want to hit the ground running, and that initial success will really compound over time.
Compound, dude. That's exactly it. And let's be honest. Here's what's going to happen for you. You are helping your former self. You are out there helping people that you used to basically be in the past when you spent time at tech companies early on. You're helping your former self. You are working hard on skills like writing, being able to interview, public speaking,
Yes.
all these extremely portable portfolio of skills. And ultimately, Chris Bussing is going to build a really large podcast following, will be a high paid consultant and coach like he already is, and will be doing keynotes for really large sales kickoffs and SCOs in the future. We already know this is going to happen.
Amen. Is visualization and the buzzword, some don't like manifestation, right? Is that something you think about? Like, I feel like, do you visualize? And that was very powerful. Thank you. Very generous to proclaim this and stand for it. And when you have someone like a mentor, I see you as a mentor, I see you as a friend, I know we just met, but we're building our relationship. And for you to proclaim that and stand for my own vision is powerful. So that's huge. But do you, for yourself and for others, like, do you believe in the power of proclaiming or visualization? How do you think about that?
Sure. So I'm with you. I think that the word manifestation itself can get a little bit of a bad rap and might be looked at as woo-woo or a little bit.
Exactly.
But what I'll tell you is some of the absolute most successful people in this world, whether they are executives, Olympic athletes, actors and actresses, they all use the power of visualization. And really, I believe that things happen twice. I believe that things happen first in your mind. You envision it, you think about what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, how do you mentally prepare? And then ultimately it happens. So things happen twice for people. And you have to act as if you have already been there. You know what this is going to feel like. That is how you set yourself up for success. So I really don't think manifestation, where maybe you just repeat something to yourself multiple times in the mirror, I don't necessarily believe that. But I will tell you this, I believe that your brain doesn't necessarily know the difference between what's true and false. What the brain knows is what you tell it most often. So if you fill your mind with positive things and you tell yourself, look, I am capable of this, I am strong, I am good at what I do, your brain will start looking for ways to make those things happen. And your brain will, a great example of this would be if, Chris, you told me that you were in the market for a brand new white Audi, maybe like a S5.
Oh, I like that. Right? I actually do need to get a new car at some point, and that's actually, I'd consider that for sure.
Okay. All right. So throwing that one out there. Well, then all of the sudden, you and I both would start noticing white Audi S5s on the road more often. And that is not a coincidence. That is a part of your brain called the reticular activation center, right? RAC. I think I got this right. Hopefully I did. I wasn't planning on talking about this, but it's the same concept where once you start thinking about something more often and you start putting it into your brain, you will start noticing it. So it's the same reason why people do gratitude journals is when you start talking about positive things, you start seeing more positive things. It is a very real thing, and I very much believe in it.
Call him Ryan Robbins, baby. You got me, like, I'm fired up. I'm inspired. I love it, man. And so I got a couple more questions for you. I wanted to understand your career highlight reel. It's fun to hear a little bit about your journey. Maybe, I mean, you've been in tech sales for 20 years. It's incredible. Because in getting into your journey, maybe there's a highlight or two that are interesting and we could poke into some lessons from your journey. And then I had some final questions on mindset. But first, tell us about your tech sales career highlight reel.
Sure. Well, first, I will tell you, I didn't start straight out of college in tech sales. It's part of the feedback or advice for my younger self. I may have gone straight into tech sales if I had to do over again. I started in consumer product goods. I had an opportunity to work for Hershey Foods and I worked for Pepsi Bottling Group. Both of those great organizations, heavy training. I did a lot of role play activity. I got a chance to spend several weeks, if not months, in individual sales training. And these were great. A lot of sales methodology training. And after a couple of years in consumer products, I realized it was really going to be difficult to make the type of income that I was interested in making. And not that those aren't great companies or that you can't be successful there, but as far as a lucrative sales opportunity, I thought about medical device sales and I thought about tech sales. And I can't even go to the doctor without getting a little bit queasy or nervous. So medical device was absolutely out. The idea of having to sit through a surgery or sit in a doctor's office or any of that operating room just scared me. And I decided to go into tech sales. I felt like technology would continue to evolve, it would continue to be relevant, and there would always be something new and exciting to talk about. And it can offer lucrative and life-changing opportunities. So I ended up going to work for a small company called OpNet Technologies. They were run by two brothers, Mark and Alon Cohen. They sold the company in, I believe it was 2009 or no, maybe 2010 to Riverbed for $900 million. It was quite a feat to watch these guys start a company and then sell their company for that much money to a large publicly traded company. I then went to go work for EMC, and that is a premier selling culture. Everyone sold in that organization. I feel very fortunate for having been a part of it, even if it was for a short period of time. Incredible leadership, fantastic selling experience. And then I did parlay that into go working for a small technology company. I worked for that company for 8 years. It was sold to a larger organization that had private equity backing, CDI. And then ultimately, CDI sold a couple of years later to Ahead, which is a very large reseller, integrator, managed service provider in North America. And I feel very fortunate for that time. And now I am at Pure Storage as a sales leader here in the Philadelphia market.
And so what drew you to Pure Storage? What do you enjoy most about working at Pure Storage? Because I think it's a great company for folks out there to consider. And you mentioned other alternative paths, and people got to figure out what's best for them based on where they're at and what they value. But hype up Pure Storage a bit and tell us what drew you to the opportunity and what do you enjoy about it?
Yeah, so I was really fortunate enough in my last job. I had an opportunity as a reseller or integrator to resell Pure Storage to my clients. And as a reseller or integrator, selling something that you really believe in and that you know is going to be successful for your clients, and that even years later, your clients will come back to you and thank you for selling to them or introducing them to. It's so important. And I got to tell you, there's a lot of things that you might sell that you have, might keep you up at night thinking, oh my goodness, I made this commitment to a client and I want them to be successful. And what if I sold them the wrong technology? Or what if I didn't sell them the right thing? And I never had those concerns when I sold Pure. I always felt good about it, and my customers always thanked me for introducing it to them. And so when it came time to leaving that role and choosing to go into what I would consider the OEM or the manufacturer space, it was a really easy decision. And to not only sell for the organization, but have an opportunity to be a leader at Pure, it was an absolute honor to join the company and to help lead sellers here in the Philadelphia market. And what I love about it is Pure came to the market to solve a problem. Pure was specifically created because customers were paying a fortune every 3 to 5 years when it was time to do a renewal. In a lot of cases, customers had to do painful migrations or forklift upgrades from one platform to the next. And Pure was purpose built to be an evergreen technology. You never rebuy the same hardware over again. And so to me, that is a mission driven sale. And I always feel great about going out and solving a problem for a customer. And I can get on board with that, and I can get other people excited about what we're doing.
How cool to sell a product that you believe in, where you feel like you're doing prospects a favor. And if only folks out there could find companies where they're selling products that customers thank them for introducing them to the product. I got a couple more questions for you, and then we'll tie a bow on this amazing conversation. And I look forward to future conversations as well, because I know you're going to be a repeat offender, as I call on multiple times. I look forward to that next podcast. We're going to do the intro. Hey, we get Ryan McMichaels, a repeat offender. Ryan, I just wanted to ask you one more career-oriented question. Any nuggets on principles that helped you get promoted, right? You could get promoted from SDR to AE. You get promoted from an AE, an SMB to mid-market to enterprise. You became a leader. And so any just high-level principles on how you position yourself to, obviously you got to do well in your role, but then, get promoted and move up in your career.
Sure. So I think the idea here is you just have to start doing the job of whatever it is you want. So for instance, when I was at a company after EMC, I went to go work for a small reseller called High Availability. And at High Availability, I was being paid to be an individual contributor, which, by the way, I really enjoyed and I had a great time doing. But outside of my normal responsibilities, I was also interested. I had passion and energy and interest around developing some of the younger sellers around me. And so I looked for opportunities to do that. I looked for chances to maybe run a training or ask if I could run a sales call if my manager wasn't going to be there, or what things could I do to put myself in a position to go try the role and make sure it was something that I wanted to do or could do effectively. And so I guess where I'm going is when it comes to being promoted, you don't necessarily have to have a leadership title to be a leader. You can start doing those things as an individual contributor. And when you do that, other people start to see you as a leader. They start to see you, wow, like Chris really stepped up in that meeting, or wow, Chris ran that entire campaign, or Chris took ownership of that project. And so when you do that, leadership really isn't about a title. It's more about other people seeing you as a resource that's consistent and someone that they would lean on or look to for guidance or advice or a model. And so when you just start doing it and you just start looking for opportunities to lean into that next role, it's almost going to become really natural for you to get promoted because you're already doing it.
Such great guidance on how to lead from wherever we're at today. People will notice and they will elevate us to promotion when they see that positive difference you're making, when you're taking ownership for things and going above and beyond. My final question for you is around building an operating system to sustain ourselves and succeed in the long run on this path. When we spoke one-off, you said that if you don't have the mindsets, the beliefs, and the habits in place, it's like having a house built on sand. It's not going to stand, right? Your career isn't going to last. And so can you just speak to this concept and your thoughts on building the right mindsets, habits, and beliefs to truly succeed on this path?
Sure. So the parallel here is I'm going to bring it home, and just like any good home, it's built on a great foundation. And I think that the foundation is around having a strong mindset. It's around strong habits, and it's around having a strong belief system. And you have to have those three things. You could do all of the challenger sales. You could do medic, med pick, any of the Sandler sales, any of those. By the way, awesome. These are great sales methodology tools. But if they're built on a really poor foundation, it's not going to matter. And so I would start with building a mindset around your capabilities, what you are capable of, focusing on living and working to your full potential, going all in on something, not necessarily being 1 foot in and 1 foot out, really going for it. And then combining that with habits like taking good care of your body, taking good care of your mind, exercising, the way that you talk to yourself, good, positive mental health, building great relationships with the people around you, and becoming a consistent person that trusts themselves. Because if you trust yourself and you build sort of good habits around where you're like, man, like I said I'm going to go to the gym, and I actually go to the gym, and I actually go do all the things that I said I was going to do. Now you build credibility, you build self-confidence. And when you do that, other people start to have confidence in you. So it is it's sort of a momentum thing. And it's amazing. Once you build those as your foundation, sky's the limit.
Cheers to building our foundations and reinforcing it, having integrity, doing what we say we will, and ultimately applying everything we learned from you, Ryan. Like, this conversation was incredible. I learned so much from it 10 years in on my tech sales journey. I know the SDRs who are trying to break in for the first time are going to learn a ton, current SDRs, AEs, and leaders who see this. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't wait to the next conversation. I encourage the audience to connect with you on LinkedIn. Any other calls to action on your end, by the way? I was thinking, just have them connect with you and follow some of your great posts, but anything else on your end?
So I do have one last thing, if you don't mind. So we did talk about building a portfolio of skills, and we talked about having conviction around what you're selling. And I really believe that it's so important, because in order to sell something, you have to have a level of energy and enthusiasm. And really, it's a transfer of energy from one person to the next. And so if I don't believe in what I'm selling, if I really don't believe that I can help someone else, that I can't, in some way, shape, or form, add value and really create the necessary change in an organization or an individual's life, the person on the other end can feel that.
Yes.
And so it's one, really believing in what you do, creating energy around that, and transfer of energy and conviction to the other person. If you can do those things, I really believe you'll be highly successful in whatever it is you sell. And so you go from selling something that might have mild impact on someone's life to really selling something that is life-changing, and feeling that what you do is so incredibly important And if you can't help one person, no big deal. I'll move on to the next person who I can really go and help. So that helps create an abundance mindset around, it's okay if I can't help you right now, I know I can move on and go help the next person. So you're not chasing sales, you're actually attracting sales.
It's like we're in the locker room, you're the coach, I'm the player, and you just gave me the conviction to go out onto the basketball court and maybe it's the fourth quarter and hit that game-winning shot, go and crush it. So thank you for this pep talk and this inspiration. Guys, it's time to get out on the court. That metaphor just was there for me, man. I love it. It was like we're in the huddle. And Brian, again, thank you. And to the audience, thank you for tuning in. I respect you for investing in your personal and professional development to your success in tech sales and in life. Happy selling and happy living. And we'll see you in the next one.